At the time I was thinking about the basic motivational state of jealousy, I happened to be visiting my parents who have three border collies. And I noticed that when I was petting the border collies, it wouldn't have been surprising if the one that I only have two hands, so the one that didn't get petted, if that dog had been upset. But that wasn't what was striking. What was striking is that I would be petting two of them, paying attention to them, and one would take his head and knock the other one's head out from underneath my hand so that both hands were on him. And it wasn't just one dog that did this. Samwise did it to Frodo, and Frodo did it to Samwise, and yes, those are their real names. I didn't make that up. So it got me to thinking that even in dogs, there might be this primordial version of jealousy that where they just don't want the attention of a loved one shared with another, and that they do things to try to obstruct that. And that's what led me into looking at the dog jealousy study and seeing if we could actually elicit this in the lab and study it, because people often anthropomorphize what their animals are like.
Tell me a bit about the experiments. I'm sure lots of dog owners would say, yeah, I think my dog gets jealous. How do you go about testing that?
So we adapted a paradigm that had been used with human infants, because human infants also can't tell you how they're feeling or what their state is. So we went to pet owners' homes, and we had three conditions. One, we had a stuffed dog that barked and whined briefly and wagged its tail, just a toy dog. The other condition, we had a jack-o'-lantern like children use when they go trick-or-treating. And then the third condition was a book that made sounds. And so in each one of these conditions, the owner is not paying attention to the dog. But in the toy dog condition, they're showing affection to this toy dog, talking to it, treating it like it's a real dog. They do the same thing with the jack-o'-lantern condition.
So they have to pretend that this jack-o'-lantern is a dog.
We wanted to see whether or not the behaviors of petting and talking to an object was enough to get some signs of jealous behaviors.
And what about the book? What was that for?
The book was the control condition, so it might just be that any time a dog loses its owner's attention, it finds it distressing. And so if we had seen similar reactions across all three conditions, then we would have concluded, oh, it's just losing an attention. It's not losing attention and having affection displayed to another.
So how many dogs did you look at, and what did you find?
We looked at 36 dogs, and each dog was in all three of these conditions. And we found that when the owner was petting the stuffed dog, the real dogs engaged in behaviors that would appear to be indicative of a jealous motivational state. They try to get in between the owner and the object. They look at the object and the owner more. Almost all of the aggression occurred in the jealousy condition. So 25% of the dogs snapped or bit at the fake dog, but only one dog did that in the other conditions. They also appeared to engage in behaviors that might be trying to get their owner's attention, so pushing and nudging their owner. And we saw this in the jealousy condition the most. We saw it somewhat in the jack-o'-lantern condition, and then much less in the book condition.
So what kinds of dogs were these? Were they all the same breed of dog? I mean, is there a risk that you've just kind of picked some dogs that are particularly like this?
It's possible that this is just small dogs. So we didn't have a particular breed. We did keep it to small dogs, because since there had been no work on this, we weren't quite sure how strong of a reaction we would get. And we didn't want to have a German Shepherd going ballistic in jealousy. So basically they were small dogs, and you might say that maybe we can only generalize to small dogs from this study. My guess is it also applies to bigger dogs, because what inspired this was border collies, who are pretty big. But again, that's an empirical question that could be addressed.
And so what do you think this tells us about the nature of jealousy, your original question?
I think it tells us that there is something hardwired that creates the motive to get between a rival and a loved one. Now, I'm not claiming that the experience of the dog is the same as the experience of the human. Humans have a lot of complex cognition that goes into jealousy, including thinking about what does this mean about me and the self and my relationship. But I do think that we see some commonalities of when you're in a situation where there's a rival for your affection with a loved one, that there's a motivation to break that up. And I think that this suggests that at least one other species has this probably hardwired into them. Again, I want to emphasize too that by saying that this is a natural emotion that arises in these situations, that by no means means that people shouldn't try to keep it in check, or that we can't control it. Jealousy in humans is a miserable emotion. It causes all kinds of unhappiness. So even though it might be natural, it still can be controlled and altered, just like fear. Fear in the right situations is a good emotion to have, but many people suffer from anxiety disorders, or we feel too anxious about things. So I just want to emphasize it doesn't mean that it's not controllable.